At one time, this was a very vibrant area. What we just passed through is the Xerox and Bausch & Lomb buildings. And what's very interesting about those is that they were built about 20 years ago when everybody was still convinced that Rochester was in some kind of a, quote, boom town. And what had happened was, in the tale of these two cities, is while on one hand there was all of this building, but on the other hand there was something called crack cocaine in the 1980s that built itself up to the same stature as those buildings. And then that was really the beginning of the end for this city. And it's really truly a tale of two cities. As the economy in the 80s took a little bit of a dip, sort of where we are today in this 2009 recession, the jobs started to get lost. They just disappeared. From my understanding, the Xerox building and the Bausch & Lomb building, both, for years, maybe even almost a decade, have had areas in the building in which they can't even rent because there aren't enough tenants that are interested in paying the very high prices, the square footage rate, the fixture fee, and this, that, and the other. And so they sit empty. This particular area that we're in right now, which is called the northwest part of the city, which again is part of the tale of two cities, on one hand it houses Upper Falls Boulevard, which they put in some very expensive condominiums, very expensive rentals, loft apartments. So it's got a very Soho, boho kind of feeling. On the other hand, if you look around with me, there's a lot of vacancies of all kinds of retail that used to be here. Again, a tale of two cities. And then as we go through here, one of the big mainstays was called the Big Yellow Box here in Rochester at one time. My understanding, it employed 130,000 people in this city. And this is the corporate offices. And this used to be an area in which it was very, very eventful. They had concerts, baseball stadium, all kinds of bars. And as you can see, everything has sort of disappeared. Don't let the scaffolding fool you. They keep laying people off from Kodak. I don't even know how many people are left. And so this whole area, this northwest section, has truly died. But what has really empowered itself in this juxtaposition is crack cocaine. Crack cocaine in this particular neighborhood, opiates, painkillers that are pharmaceutical, that are black market, and heroin, have completely overtaken the whole area. And the area then really begins to change, and the change isn't very subtle, it's very quick. There's something funny about a neighborhood, and you can tell. In neighborhoods that are prosperous, you usually don't see Aldi's, you don't see a ton of pawn shops, you don't see a lot of Volunteers of America, and this neighborhood is laden with convenience stores, pawn shops, places that buy jewelry and gold very quickly, secondhand items, and that's very telling of a neighborhood. Right now we're in a zip code called 14613. 14613 has been a neighborhood that has suffered from crack cocaine, prostitution, and all of the illegal activities that go along with it for at least 20 years. I worked in this neighborhood for 10 years, and I can tell you that there have really been no significant improvements. Where we're going to go now is an area that if you listen to a police scanner, day and night, it's very active. This particular area, bad news. It's always been bad news since at least the 1970s, 80s. This used to be all Kodak employees, not the executives. Again, the blue-collar persons that worked for Kodak that made a decent wage. Now, these houses, I'll drive by slow, you can't even sell them for $5,000. Some of them just wind up blighted and sit empty. And that's the status of the neighborhood. This is a great place for prostitution, this neighborhood, because as you can see, there are parts of it that are very cavernous. Meaning at night, I mean, don't let this fool you, at night, there's all these commercial spaces to pull off in, so Johns don't even have to get a room in order to get a sexual favor or a sexual service. So it really really has very little hope. But see what I'm talking about, the cavernousness of all of this. I mean, at night, this is just fantastic. Even during the day, we could probably park and nobody would care. The topless bar is over there. You can certainly get sexual favors and services there. Whitney Street, where the railroad tracks are, well known because, again, it's very dark, very secluded. And here we are on Lyle Avenue, which is also called the Stroll. These buildings, one after the other, if you look, they're either for rent or for sale, they're condemned. It's amazing. I mean, the whole neighborhood is like completely blighted, and it's been this way here for the 10 years that I've worked here. Nothing has changed. Nothing at all. And remember, this is about 10 minutes away from this thing we call Center City of downtown Rochester. Very, very interesting. One of my clients that just got out of jail, she's been out 3.5 days, and she's managed to make it back to Lyle Avenue. And there she goes. She has 6 children. She's 31 years old, and not one child is in her custody or has ever been in her custody, and she sees none of them. If I had to tell you about her aside from this particular expedition today, she's probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. But her primary problem is crack cocaine, and the crack supersedes everything. She's a very nice kid. Very sad.